Hello, Andrew. It's so great to be with you.
Hi, Kay. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, yeah. Um, where in the world are you right now?
I am in a town called Punta del Este in the country of Uruguay, which is way down south in South America on the Atlantic Ocean side, quite close to Buenos Aires, um, so the southern tip of Argentina.
Oh, that's a long way from where we talked to you last time.
It is indeed.
So last time we talked, you were just about to start the race, actually. It was Portsmouth.
Mhm.
We were in Portsmouth. And can you just share a little bit about your journey since then?
Sure. Yes, we had an amazing departure from Portsmouth. Thousands and thousands of family and friends came out to wish all the boats well and to send us off. And then we had about a 9-day sail down from Portsmouth across the English Channel, across the Bay of Biscayne, the coast of France, down the coast of Portugal, and then pulled in the town of Cadiz in Spain. So Cadiz, Spain is sort of on the west coast of Spain, just south of Portugal. And we had a nice stay there for about a week. Got our boats all tuned up from the first sort of test race. It was an official race, but it was sort of a test race for a lot of the boats to make sure our equipment was in order. And that was, I think, about 1,200 miles to get to Spain. And then our next leg, which was 5,800 miles, was from Cadiz, Spain, down to here in Uruguay. So that had us cross the equator. It had us cross the Atlantic. It had us go from, from Spain down all the way down to the southern parts of South America. So that was a much different trip. That trip took 28 days. And but we arrived about I don't know what day of the week it is even now, but I think we arrived about just under a week ago,
Mhm.
and we're getting ready to leave this Sunday to head on our next adventure.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
Yeah, it's quite something actually. I remember about halfway down this second race, we were doing just sort of a daily check-in that we do at lunch, and we were about 120 miles off the coast of Africa, sort of near Ghana and some of the very western countries on the sort of the bump at the top of the continent of Africa, just over 100 miles away. And then maybe 5 days later or 6 days later, we were about 100 miles off the coast of Brazil, and where the bump of Brazil kicks out into the Atlantic Ocean. And it just struck me that how remarkable that you could go from Africa to Brazil in a sailboat in the matter of 5 or 6 days. Um, but when you're sailing in a good breeze for 24 hours and you do it day after day after day, you actually cover some decent territory. And it's pretty amazing to think that we could sail from England to the southern parts of South America, going 7 to 10 miles an hour at most of the time. It seems like something that would be insane to do. But in a sailboat, it somehow just makes it, at least now, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a great adventure.
Yeah. I got to thinking about recording. And I was like, this is the dream for you.
This is the dream. Yeah, I mean, it's the dream realized for sure. I think the first week was kind of just it was small, like it was a very manageable length of time and distance. And it was a really good thing to do because we got to know the boat and the crew well enough. And we learned some things that we needed to do better, and I think we ended up in fifth place, or the 11
Mm.
boats in that first race. We had a lot of different weather conditions, but it sort of gave us a sense of confidence that we had a group of people that could work well together, and we had a good boat, and we had a good skipper and assistant skipper. So yeah, when we were leaving Spain, I think our boat felt really positive about our potential, and we ended up, we were leading at times, and we were in the top 3 for most of the way down, and we ended up in 3rd place, which we all felt was very satisfying and very, well deserved, and yet we also know that we're capable of competing against the top 1 or 2 boats. So yeah, I mean, so far it really is the dream realized, and I think it's been very close to what I imagined it might have been, with the exception that I think seeing the growth in some of the people who have less experience has been really remarkable to see their ability to learn and grow, and gain their own confidence. And I think there's something to be said. I mean, it's the repetition of sailing all day. Obviously, we rest, so you end up sailing half the day every day. But doing that for 4 weeks in a row, you actually get, in terms of the volume of hours of training and learning, you get an amount of sailing experience that, might take somebody several years to get if they, went for a 2-week lesson, every summer. These guys are getting full on intensive training all packed together in 4 weeks, which, and the conditions are what they are. And so it's a really interesting venue for people to see people learn and to see people gain confidence at something that they didn't have much experience at before. That's been really profound for me to see that, because I'm probably, well, I am, other than the 2 professionals, I am the most experienced sailor on our boat. But, I can see now that we're going to have a whole team full of very, very competent sailors as we go forward.
You put this great graphic into the Climb Aboard My Adventure Facebook group in the weeks, I think, before you left, and it was like my sailing experience, like prior to that, and then there was like this. Can you describe that? Your words would probably be better than mine. Just the graphic.
Yeah, well, I was trying to recall, in all of the years of sailing I did as a young person in Canada and later, I think the longest race I ever did with my family was about 150 miles or so. And that was in the lakes in Lake Ontario in Canada. And then in the training that we did a 450-mile sail, like continuous sail, as part of the training. So that was pretty cool.
So that was just to sort of bring everybody up to speed. Like, so over your whole life, you've got 100 and, did you say 150?
150 miles was the longest sort of continuous sail that I had done. I've got tens of thousands of hours of sailing, but in terms of miles in a row, 150, and then 450 in training.
And that was
it was last September. Yeah, so just over a year ago.
Okay. And where are we now? Yeah.
and then from 450 we go to the 1,200 miles from Portsmouth to Spain. Yeah. And then from 1,200 we go to 5,800, which in actual fact I think we sailed well over 6,000 miles just because of the course and everything. Yeah. So 6,000 miles, 28 days at sea, no stopping, no support. So yeah, it's a bit of a hockey stick curve, as they say in sort of in the business world. And well, the next time we bump that up, I guess we have 2 legs in that'll happen in early in 2024. One from Australia up to China. That's, I think, similar length to this past one, and then the longest one is from China across to Seattle, which will be about 5 weeks at sea. So yeah, the even for somebody who would be an experienced sailor, a lot of this is new, and a lot of the experience is teaching me a lot of new things, and so to do that, and then to also watch, some people with less experience and the curve that they're on is really cool. It's really cool to
Mm,
be part of that.
yeah. I mean, well, I guess what's coming to mind is like you're still you. Like with the same curiosities and all your experience. Actually, I was curious too. How has I don't know what I would love an official title actually, but anyway, we talked last time about how you're sort of a first mate. There's two
Mm-hmm.
first mates and you're one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked a little bit about how you were making sure that was like that you were taking good care of yourself as you were doing that in terms of like not getting burnt out or whatever, like that you were
Mm-hmm.
doing a good job with that. And then I'm very curious about like how it has been to be a first mate.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I mean, um, I have a group of nine, well, eight and myself. So there's nine of us all together, and we're on a watch system. So we're basically sailing together, half the day, split into different shifts. And what I really tried to do was to understand each person's desires in terms of the sailing experience that they wanted to have, in terms of
Mm,
were there specific roles that they wanted to learn, and parts of the boat that they really enjoyed working in, or were they just happy to be a contributor in whatever way we needed in the moment. And so I spent some time before we left getting to know the group, and what they were looking to get out of the race from a sailing perspective. And then the other side is we have a lot of chores that need to be done on the boat every day in order to keep the boat in good working order and clean. So it's also making sure that those duties are assigned and being done properly. So, it's a bit of you're certainly the person that has to, hold people to account, but also make decisions to give people opportunities to learn new things, and then to make sure that they're supported in learning those new things in a way that is safe and effective. And
mm,
so, I had a couple of people who did have some sailing experience on that group, and one of them was quite a good helmsman. So I ended up having him sort of assigned as our lead helmsman for every shift. So he would start our team out as the helmsman, and then he would stay at the helm as we rotated new people in, and he would really coach them and guide them. And then we'd give him a break about halfway through, and we'd bring in another one of our experienced helmsmen, and he would do the same thing, so that everybody on our team had a chance to helm the boat many times throughout the race. Almost, I would say, probably on a daily basis, everybody's helmed the boat at least a couple of times.
mm,
Which, if you're fairly new to sailing or brand new to sailing, helming a 70-foot sailboat in some pretty challenging weather conditions it's no small feat. It's not a simple task.
mm.
Plus, we're racing, so there's also some intention to what we're doing, and there's an execution required to keep us on course and keep us going fast. So, that's the way I approached the job, was to find people within the team that had skill sets to help me execute what needed to be done. I had a lady on our team from Australia who's a very good attention to detail person, and so I asked her to lead the assignment of the chores and the duties for the day. So she had like a schedule where everybody was allocated jobs to do every day. So that was great. And then we had a chef or somebody who grew up in a family restaurant and had some chefing experience. So he was making sure that our meal plan was executed as planned, and that we were using the food that we had. So, I'd say I delegated very well, and that was part of the self-care for me, was to not take all the responsibility on myself to try to do all those things. And so those people were really supportive, and then I just kind of made sure that we were on the sort of the macro level taking care of all of what we needed to do. So far so good. It sounds like I'm going to be doing the same role again for the next leg. So that'll be fun, and then there'll be a little different group of people because we have some people leaving and some new people coming in. But yeah, I think that, you know, trusting my own instincts and trusting my own approach to leadership and letting other people shine at the things that they're really good at proved to be a pretty effective way to do the job.
Mm. Well, and it comes to me too that like what you did at the beginning was you spent time getting to know them and understanding well, not only what were they good at, I'm guessing, but what did they like what motivated them. And like my experience is that things go much better when, you know, we're really invested, like, and even the things that you don't necessarily want to do or that you're a little nervous about or whatever, like if you can feel empowered because you're getting the joy of doing the thing that you do enjoy, and then I don't know, like there's something, I think this is really worth kind of highlighting, because certainly in the US we tend to do it backwards, right? We'll be like, hey, like one of my kids works in retail and literally just had this, he's making the well, I won't say what his decision is, but anyway, his work has been impacted because there's somebody new who basically said, this is how you will lay out your shift, every shift. And Jay's like, what? Like,
yeah,
maybe that'd work for you, but right, like, come on, man.
Yeah, that's been an interesting thing on our boat is, you know, we have, as you mentioned earlier, there's two of us who are leading the two groups, and I would say that my counterpart is a more directive approach. He likes to make the decisions and allocate the responsibilities and really, like be responsible for as many things as possible. And the way the teams were split up, it ended up that he had a much younger group than I did. And they probably needed a little bit more structure and a little bit more discipline to rein in some of their energies. And there were a lot of people on that watch who had a desire to show what they were able to do, and, you know, and to be the voice of directing other people. And, you know, one of the sayings on my watch is, you know, one voice. Which is, there's one person that should be making the calls on what needs to happen next, but that is not me. It's whoever is responsible in the moment for that, to be that voice. And we like to share that voice around. The other watch started out where everybody wanted to be the voice, and they would try to be the voice over top of each other. And so he had to really create some structure and discipline to help straighten that out, and he's done a great job of doing that. So they have become a much more cohesive team now. And our team just it was all sort of mature. You know, I was one of the I don't know, I might have been the second youngest on our team. And you know, so I knew right from the start that they did not want to be told what to do. But if I said, you know, like, for example, when we come up to start our watch, one of the things we do is we pair up so that whenever somebody is helming, they're going to be with somebody else and be sort of as a tandem taking care of the helming duties. I didn't need to decide who the pairings would be each time. I could ask everybody, pair up with somebody you'd like to helm with on this shift. And it was fun because I saw them making their own choice to change who they were spending time with and get to know new people. And so that's the way I ran our shift, was much more of a, you guys make the decisions on you know, what you want to get from this experience. And then my job is to just make sure that all the safety things are covered, that we're not missing missing anything that we need to be aware of. And then trusting that people will do a good job, and so, yeah, I mean, it was interesting. If we go back to the whole sort of asking them what they wanted to get out of the race, with my coaching background, I've always seen that one of the hardest questions to ask somebody, or for somebody to answer, it's easy to ask, for somebody to answer, is, what do you really want? People spend a lot of time in the what they don't want, and what they might like, or this or that, but to really narrow it down is actually a really hard question for people to answer. And I think for a lot of the people, when I asked them that question, it took them a couple of days for us to actually get the whole group to have a clear picture on what they wanted to get from the race from a sailing perspective. But once they had that, then it's my job to make sure that I empower them to be able to do that, and to do it in a way that suits them. And so, I mean, there's cases where it was really, really windy. We had many nights where the moon was down, or we had cloud cover, so it was very dark. You're sailing basically blindly through a roaring storm with big waves all around you. It's it can be unnerving, and if people didn't feel comfortable helming, then I was not putting them on the helm. It was they needed to be in charge of that. And so it's been interesting. I think the way that I've supported people, I can see how it's pretty consistent to the way I do my coaching, which is not directive. It's much more sort of, this is your thing. You've got to figure it out. I can be a mirror to you. I can be a sounding board, but you need to make your own decisions, and you need to be responsible for what you do. And then you're responsible for the outcomes that you get. And and then the other thing is, every 9 days, I was also on galley duty cooking the meals for the whole team. So that was a good check to how well I was empowering my team to lead without me, because those days you're basically down below cooking or cleaning all day long. So there's been lots of interesting just sort of observations around leadership styles and about how I've done it that's been really, really cool to have that experience in this kind of a context of a sailboat crossing the ocean.
Yeah, you're like this sort of spaceship, basically. It's just you and whatever you do. And I mean, it's and what I'm thinking about too is I remember you talking about, I think it was on that 450-mile journey that you did, where you were the galley person, and you were like, but I need to be out there. There's stuff going on there that I need to be, lending a hand with. So I remember, can you share a little bit about that, Les? Because that was really interesting to hear about, as a spectator.
Yeah. I mean, that, I had another one of those during this race, where somehow every time I'm on galley duty, we have wild storms, which creates two issues. The first issue is being in the galley is about the last place you want to be because of all the smells. You're inside the boat. The boat is moving in very uncomfortable ways. So there's a lot of reasons to not want to be there in the first place. But the other one for me is that, I really, I say this every day on the boat, is I get to go sailing today. And like, that's legitimately what I'm excited about. So when there's crazy weather and difficult situations to deal with, I'd far rather be in the mix helping deal with them than to be down below. But yeah, in the training session, the skipper that we had, sort of recognized my angst in the moment and said, look, yes, you could be really helpful for the team, but if the team finishes this and comes down and there isn't a meal for them, then we're going to have a whole nother level of problem. And we also need to see how people respond when you're not there. And so that was a really good lesson for me to learn, is that wanting to be there is great and all that, you know, and being excited to be part of it. But I also have a role to play of just to pull back and let other people experience things without me being there to provide guidance or support. And I've really seen that, you know, that those chances that, and they've happened a couple of times now, have given new people the opportunity to really see what they're capable of. And so in the long run, it's for the benefit of all of us that I'm down there every few days or every 9 days. It'll be my least favorite place to be, I suspect, throughout the race, but one of my personal goals is to become a much more competent person in the galley.
Cool.
So that I don't dread it quite as much as I do right now. So it's a
It's
lot of pressure. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure to cook for 20 people in very difficult circumstances, without having any real creative background when it comes to cooking. So, you know, and on the boat, we have a limited number of ingredients to work with. Depending on how long we've been at sea, we may or may not have fresh food left. So trying to get creative with, you know, 30 cans of food is not my forte, and it's not something I have a lot of confidence, but it's something that I'm striving to get better at.
This is so fascinating. I was having a hard time imagining you dreading anything. But if there's something that's like that's new, that's outside of your comfort zone, that people are depending on you for, and you've got to do it. You can't, like, you know, talk your way out of it.
Yeah, no, I've tried.
Yeah. Well, then the other thing that I have a curiosity about, because we like, well, referencing everyone to go to the website, you can go to coachandrewmoss.com, and that will take you to the Clipper Round the World Race website, which I can't remember what that one is. But anyway, there's a race viewer, which is awesome in itself. Like, I managed to not be addicted to it, but it was really fun to check in. It felt like the Marauders map in Harry Potter. And the other thing that was really thrilling was Skipper Mike's log. So every couple of days you'd hear from either Skipper Mike or Lottie, the I think she's called the AQP. Yeah. Like, and so their posts were amazing because you'd hear about the hijinks, you'd hear about you played assassin on the boat.
We did, yes. And I'm still alive.
You're still alive. Yeah,
yes,
that's awesome.
I'm kind of in a stalemate because the person that I have to kill is also the person trying to kill me. So we're both sort of like, well, let's just wait it out and see if we end up as the final two.
It's like spy versus spy in the Mad magazine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
It got kind of hilarious because I survived like 3 attempts because the the 3 things that I think there's 3, right? There's location, there's the weapon,
and there's the person.
Oh, the person, yeah. So it was me on the foredeck, which is the area of the sailboat in front of where the mast is.
Okay.
So quite far up in front of the boat.
That's where you had to be killed.
I had to be killed there, with a can of gravy. And so the first attempt was really weak, and so somebody tried to hand me the can of gravy as I was standing up on the front of the boat, and I just thought to myself, no, this is absurd, right? And so then I was onto it, and then they got killed by somebody else, and so then somebody else didn't know that they had failed attempt, and so my spidey senses were quite on alert now to, first of all, I'd still spend a lot of time on the foredeck because it's a part of the boat where a lot of my work gets done. But yeah, any sense of gravy or any sense somebody would hand me something that looked like it might be wrapped, covering up something. So it was quite funny. So yes, yes,
So yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
but Mike, Mike and Lottie are a great leadership team on our boat. They're a lot of fun. But and Mike's he's competitive, but not in a way that takes away the enjoyment and takes away the sort of lightheartedness of the whole thing. And for Lottie, this is she's only 27. This is a huge new experience for her to be doing something like this. She has quite a bit of sailing experience, but more sort of cruising people around the Mediterranean and around Greece. So not as much racing experience. And not as much experience, directing a group of adults. So it's been really cool to see the team come together around their leadership and their different leadership styles, and then to see both of them grow as well and learn new things and learn how to manage, a group of 20 random people from around the world. So it's a pretty cool, and I've heard that Mike's posts are quite entertaining and
amazing.
And he's funny because he's got this ability to sleep anywhere. I've never seen somebody who can sleep in the strangest places, and so yeah, we'll find him curled up, on the floor of the boat. He has this theory that he's convinced himself of, which is that he can wake up faster from locations other than his bunk. So if he's not intentionally sleeping, which he and Lottie alternate shifts, if he's not supposed to be sleeping and he just wants to rest, then he will sleep anywhere but his bunk. And we have many pictures of him curled up in all kinds of crazy places on the boat. So yeah.
Well, and the reason I thought of the skipper's logs is because very, very often what we're hearing about, well, there's two things: there's wildlife and there's food. And I like you've said that there's like 40% of the people on the boat are Canadians, and there's like I remember seeing a picture of like a what felt like a I forget what those things are, a pallet of maple syrup.
Yes, it was literally a Costco pallet of maple syrup. Yes.
And so we're reading about homemade bread, and we're reading about all these wonderful desserts that somebody's grandmother sort of stowed in the freezer, and it's like, first of all, that's amazing, and second of all, you've shared that in the Facebook group that you have like a gluten intolerance. And I mean, I know for myself, like hiking across England with a cashew allergy was pretty interesting. And I wondered if you could share something about the experience of like food in the boat, basically, food on the boat.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, we did a pretty good job before we left of gathering information on everybody, so that the decisions that were made around purchasing food were made with some awareness to any potential issues. So for example, all of the pasta that we bought, and we probably eat pasta on average once a day, or once every day and a half maybe. But all of the pasta that we bought was gluten-free pasta, and they found a fantastic source that was cost a bit the same as regular, and was actually fairly good and tasted really good. And most people have said that they couldn't tell the difference. So things like that have been done to accommodate. There's two of us that have gluten intolerances. One of my counterparts, she's a little more severe than mine. Mine is sort of more, if I don't pay attention to what I'm eating for multiple days, then I definitely will get sick. And so I have to be conscious of what I'm doing, but I don't have to be completely strict every single day, every single meal. So I have a little bit of flexibility that way. But for sure, I mean, every day there's about 3 loaves of homemade bread that come out of the oven, which smell great and I'm sure taste great. But I have to do my best to avoid them. And
Mm.
my counterpart Diane, she will make us some kind of a gluten-free treat um, every couple of days, and so she always has set aside something for us to have a dessert or a treat of our own that's just for the two of us. So that's been
Oh,
really
that's
nice.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I bet. Yeah.
yeah. So I'd say in general, I mean, the food has been really, really good. It's been amazing what the creativity of people when they're tasked with, making breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 20 people.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I haven't got sick from food. I think I got some kind of a cold or a virus just from being around a bunch of other people who were getting sick, but
Mm-hmm.
I've shaken that now, and so far no concerns. I think I'm definitely probably lost 5 or 8 pounds by the time we got here,
Mm-hmm.
but thankfully in Uruguay they are meat lovers, and every meal is a plate full of meat, and there's not many. You have to go looking for vegetables here, but yeah, I mean, it's been easy to sort of replenish and feel back to normal as we get ready to leave again.
Because I was hearing in when you were leaving Portsmouth, there was this really wonderful live stream, and they were talking about the people hosting the live stream were talking about how and one of them has done this herself. Like she's been a competitor in the
Mm-hmm.
race, and she was like, you use 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
It's impossible to eat that much
mm,
on the boat, just because there's not enough room to store all the sort of extra food that you would need, and there's the kitchen, it's like the galley itself is just a 4 burner propane stove, so to make 5,000 calorie worth of food for 20 people, there's just not enough capacity to do that. So
mm,
I think everybody felt a little thinner, a little lighter when we got in. But we have 7 day breaks at most of the ports, 7 to 10 day breaks. So I think the cumulative over the year is that you probably come back a few pounds lighter. But if you take care of your nutrition in port during the
mm,
breaks, all in all, it's not going to have
yeah.
much of an effect. But you certainly have to make sure you don't skip any meals on the boat. We do have snack bags that are available in between meals, so we make it work.
Mm,
But yeah, and it's also a little bit dependent on the weather as to your calorie expenditure, because we had a span of 4 or 5 days where the wind was quite light and there wasn't really much to do, and so you're just sitting out enjoying the sunshine and watching the dolphins, and
mm,
life's pretty simple. So but it's an interesting sort of human performance experience when it comes to food, and then the work, but also rest, because sleep, obviously everybody or more and more people are becoming aware of the importance of sleep.
mm,
And I think the most sleep I got at any one point was about 3 hours at a time.
mm-hmm,
And so you're sleeping 3 hours and then maybe 2 hours the next time and another 2 hours. And, and then you got to be functioning in between that in some pretty high stakes environments. So learning how to do that, learning how to sleep better and get to sleep quickly, and has been a part of the challenge for sure. I'm still working on it, because
mm,
my brain, as soon as I hear noises up above that are related to sailing, I get curious about what's going on, and I'll
mm.
poke my head up, and people are like, "You're supposed to be sleeping," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know," but so yes, I'm probably the bottom of the pack performer when it comes to quality sleep so far, but
Mm, mm.
I'm hoping I can get better at that.
It's fascinating. It's like having a new baby, kind of. It's
It really is. Yes, I remember those days vaguely, but it is, yeah, intermittent sleep, 2 to 3 hour blocks, and the conditions for sleeping are quite challenging. I mean, you're in a bunk that it's adjustable so that you can try to pull up or lower down your bunk to maintain some kind of a level,
like as in
base.
not
Yeah.
like with your feet up higher or your head up higher or you're sliding down or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so you don't fall out. So oftentimes you're just wedging yourself into a space where you won't get bounced around too much. So it's quite challenging, but I think we're all, and then the temperatures and all that, we had well over 30 degrees Celsius days through the equator and the tropics. And then we were down to, I think, 6 degrees Celsius as we were getting close to Uruguay at night. And so you're also trying to, manage your own body temperature and what clothing to wear and sleeping bag or no sleeping bag. So it's an interesting, unusual challenge almost every single day that you're facing. And but somehow you get through it, and and then you get back on shore and it's all a blur and it's like ready to go again, as if it it was all no big deal. But
yeah,
so it's interesting.
Oh, thank you. Like, I got a couple more questions. I feel like this has been such an interesting conversation about the experience of it and the yeah. Okay. So anyway, the questions I have are, you founded a community called the Global Coach Community. I'm a part of that. We just had our second annual Global Coach Community Virtual Retreat, and the theme this year was, "Are we having fun yet?" And you got to be like a special guest there because of what you're doing, and it really made me curious about like, what about this is like really fun for you?
Oh, all of it. I mean, to be honest,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's been really interesting because from the very first time I went to the training sessions to be able to do this race, we were asked a question of sort of, what's your expectation? What are you hoping to get from this? And my answer has always been exactly the same, which is, any day that I get to go sailing is a fun day for me. And I literally wake up on the boat at the end of whatever sleep I've gotten, excited and looking forward to getting to go sailing, no matter what might be happening out there. And so I'd say all of it has been fun. I think that there are different challenges that come with the context that we're sailing in terms of personalities and in terms of conditions and what have you. But above it all is I just look at the opportunity we have to get to go sailing around the world, be in nature in parts of the world where not many people get to go. We from Spain to Uruguay, I think we went about 18 days where we saw no other human beings.
Wow.
So didn't see any other
not
boats.
On the horizon, not on the
no ships, no sailboats, no anything. Wow. And so that's a unique experience, right? We had no clue what's going on in the world, for 18 days. We have, wildlife just sort of curious about us, and coming and checking out our boat. And so, yeah, I mean, if that's not fun, then I'm not sure what is, at least in the way I see life. So yeah. Are we having fun yet? Yes, absolutely. And if my parents are watching this, one of the funny jokes is that their first question every time I check in is, are you ready to come home yet? And I think they're catching on that I might not answer in the affirmative as we go through this. But because I understand the risks, I understand the challenge. I came into this sort of pretty eyes wide open about what this was going to be. And I've been excited about it with all of that awareness. So I don't expect that's going to change.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because again, thinking of you and just how I've experienced you over the years that I've known you. Like, there was one day while I was on this trek that I did in May, where I was like nervous because it was the longest day I'd had, or there was a lot of ascent or something like that. And you were like, tomorrow is Wednesday. You get to go for a nice walk. And I was like, yeah, actually, yeah. And like that's how I approach, like, how lucky am I? Oh my God. And I wasn't always that way. And I think that you were a big influence on that for me. Um, there is, I don't know who this is. There's a hockey sort of great who used to say, it's a great day for hockey.
Mm-hmm. Gordie Howe, I think.
Gordie Howe, there it is. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And I feel like there are quotes like that about skiing and just the way that you're talking about it. Like, this experience is fun for you because you're like in the mindset of, like, you're not cranky about being wet all the time, or hot and then cold, or getting smacked with a flying fish.
No.
You're like, okay,
I get to go sailing. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean,
cool.
I don't take that for granted. I think to be able to do this, to be able to take the time to do this at this point in my life, with kids and loved ones, all, still, still around and still part of my life, to be able to take this time and do this is, I'm really, really, really appreciative and grateful for the opportunity. And so I'm not going to spend any time complaining about, what the conditions are. It's to me, it's just to really, really enjoy the experience, and to enjoy every shift, and to really tackle it, the one shift at a time, which sounds pretty corny, but the reality is, if you get ahead of yourself, or you worry about that, long hike tomorrow, you can build up a whole story around it that actually gets in the way of enjoying what is more likely going to happen, which is you have a great and joyful day that has a few challenges in it, but at the end of it, you're so proud of yourself for having done it. And I've just had every day we have 5 shifts that have to get done, and I just do them one at a time with as much joy as I can. And I think some of that, I mean, it definitely rubs off on other people too, is to say, when they ask me why aren't I sleeping, and I'm like, I would rather be out here sailing than sleeping, understanding that there's a balance to that. But I think that does rub off on people as well.
Yeah. I love that. Has this experience changed you at all? Like, do you feel like it's changed you?
It doesn't feel that way yet. What I think it has done, is it, and I think I said this at the coach retreat on Sunday. I think it has taught me how to apply what some of the skills that have helped me sort of in my personal life, in my professional life. It's helped me hone those skills even sharper, because it's given me much more extreme situations to apply them. And so, for example, I mean, I think one of the big things that helped me over the last 10 or 15 years of my life was to just be more mindful and more aware of my thoughts, and to be more curious about thoughts and emotions as opposed to reacting to them, just be more curious about them. I could say for certain that has changed me and the way I show up in the world substantially. Well, that's easy to talk about and easy to share when you're living a life on land, that's fairly routine, that has, you have a nice roof over your head, you have meals every day, etc. Out here, it's very different. There are more extreme situations where your ability to do that is put to the test. So if any, I'd say that the biggest thing that has changed is just growth, to be able to apply some of the things that I've learned in a broader context, in a more challenging context, and to see that they work just as well, being mindful of your thoughts and emotions when you're working with 8 other people under extreme situations. Very helpful tool to have, very helpful, because not everybody is going to react in their own best way to different circumstances. And so how I respond to the way they show up will determine what happens, in that moment. If somebody is frustrated because they're cold and they haven't slept well, and they don't feel secure about their ability to do something, and so they get, their frustration comes out in a verbal way or some way. If I take that personally and I react back to that, then we have an escalated situation that's going to be a problem. If I just see it for what it is, see that it's not about me, see that it's just them working through their own challenge in the moment, and show up in support of them, then we de-escalate the situation very quickly and we move on. And that has happened many, many, many times through the first 5 weeks of sailing, that the ability to de-escalate a situation has allowed us to move ahead very quickly and help people continue to grow, and also not feel afraid to feel and respond to however they're feeling in the moment, and not to worry that that's going to somehow be lead to problems on the boat. People have felt comfortable sharing how they're feeling about different things, and seeing that how we respond to that is really our own responsibility. I think I wrote a quick little post yesterday about this on LinkedIn, that it's on our shift, it's the number one rule, which is how you react to how somebody else shows up is 100% your responsibility. And so it's, to me, that the personalities of the team, it doesn't really matter that they're as diverse as they are, because it's, if nobody reacts to them in a negative way, we can all just coexist, and we can all just respond to each other's way of showing up without accelerating anything, or without intensifying anything. We can just take it for what it is and move forward. And that's helped a lot. That's helped a lot.
Well, there's so much about this that I feel like can resonate in daily life if we let it to. And when you were talking earlier about being like, I think you touched on it, the idea that like there are events happening, and when you look at them, you've said this in other ways or in other places, like when you can look at the events happening with curiosity and like sort of non-attachment, you're in a much better place. And like, so it sounds like now what's happening is you have even bigger opportunities to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember a story even during the pandemic where I went in a coffee shop with my mask on, and there was an older gentleman in there who didn't have a mask on, and he started screaming at me that I was part of the conspiracy, trying to control whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I just remember in that moment going, just wow, and it was just this very sort of simple moment of curiosity about what the confusion that different people had to different, to the situation we were dealing with at the time, and the way different people were dealing with that uncertainty, and the decisions that were being made, or what people were being forced to do or not forced to do. And I just remember feeling 100% empathy for this gentleman, even though he was lashing out at me, and no judgment, just, empathy for what he was going through.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same as what happens probably 10 or 20 times a day on the boat, is that you see people react to each other, or to me, or to the situation, and you just get curious and you learn more about them and their personality. And you, if you're good at it, you can also find ways to let them know how, to give them a mirror to how that's playing out and how it's affecting other people. And So that's been, one of the things I think I've brought to the boat is just that being tuned in to observing human behavior, given that it's what I get to do in my professional life every day, means I am hyper aware of what's going on and how people are reacting to each other and to me and the circumstances. And I think that's been very helpful because it's helped. I can provide feedback that lets people grow and find a way to have a more enjoyable experience on the boat. And so, which hopefully also plays out outside the boat, in their own personal lives.
Yeah.
So somebody said to me, you're not actually getting a year off coaching. It's just your office is going to look a lot different. they were right. It's sort of impossible to turn it off.
Yeah.
So,
well, as we're wrapping up, is there anything that you want to, share, or anything we haven't talked about that you want to make sure to highlight?
Well, no, I mean, we're off to Cape Town on Sunday, so that would be whatever, the 22nd, I think, of October, depending on when people are listening to this, which I think is about 2.5 week to 3 week trip, which will seem quite short now that we've done the 4-week one. It's supposed to be good winds the whole way, a little bit bigger ocean, so bigger waves and bigger sea state. But it's a really special leg for me because, my dad's from South Africa. I'll have uncle and aunt and cousins waiting for me there. My dad learned to sail in South Africa. That became part of my life. So it's pretty special to be able to go back in a sailboat and to go back to Cape Town and go back to South Africa as part of this race. And my cousins have been following closely the race, so they're very excited to welcome us. So yeah, it's just, for those who've been following along, is to, keep following along. The race viewer, I've heard, is a lot of fun to sort of track the boats and be curious about why we're doing what we're doing. And to see, we had a circumstance in this past race where there's a sort of a scoring gate where it's
thank you. Yes. I wanted to ask about this, or talk about it.
Yeah, so that was about 1 week into the race. There was sort of a virtual finish line that boats could earn bonus points based on the top 3 boats to go through that virtual finish line first. And we ended up, there was one boat that was ahead and got through first, and then we ended up basically on a collision course with another boat at the very virtual finish line. Thankfully, we were coming from a direction which, in terms of nautical rules of the road, we had the right of way over the other boat, and so they were forced to avoid us, which gave us just enough space to tuck in 9 seconds ahead of them across that virtual finish line. And it was quite a moment because it was in the middle of the night. And so we each had our spinnakers, which are the big sort of balloon or sort of parachute like sails up. And there's a light on the front of the boat that shines, that illuminates those sails so we can trim them. So all you could see was these 2 illuminated sort of parachute spinnakers within, 100 yards of each other, going across. And we had about 3 miles where we sailed side by side, where we were just ahead of them. And we've talked to the guys on that boat, and everybody agreed it's like the highlight moment of the race so far, because it was like being a junior sailor, on a tiny little racing course, but all over again. But so that was really special. And you can sort of see that on the race viewer. You can see the different tracks and the different tactics that the boats are taking in terms of their routing to go from place to place.
Yeah.
So yeah, if people are interested in that, there's some fundraising campaign information on my website. We have a UNICEF fundraiser for our boat, and then I have a personal GoFundMe campaign fundraiser there, which I've really appreciated the support that's come through that. Yeah, I mean, this race is intended to be, an inspiration for people, not necessarily to sail around the world, but to pursue whatever, dreams they have for themselves. And, I just encourage people to take any inspiration that you get from what I'm doing and think about how, if you have the childhood dream like I did to go and do something, or if you have a dream that's been later developing in your life, so lots of people asked me before I did this how I knew that I could do it. And my answer has always been that I don't know if I could do it, but that's the whole point, is to go and find out. And when you walked across England, there was a lot of questions and doubts and fears about whether you could do it. I mean, but that was the point, was to put one foot in front of the other and find out. And as it turns out, you could. And so far, so good for me. But I'd love to hear from people who've been inspired by this to go and do their own adventure, whatever that might look like.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I want to just quickly come back to that moment around the scoring gate, because, I mean, there's 5,800 miles that you're going. And you just said, earlier you said that you spent 18 days not seeing another soul.
Yeah.
And you...
Yeah, and we were 100 yards apart. Well, they were actually the last people we saw, because as soon as we basically crossed the line, they actually did a maneuver to go out to the west, and we kept going the direction we were going. So that they were the last person we saw until we came back together and saw another boat near the finish line. And so, yeah, I mean, it was a remarkable moment. It was, we kind of knew that there was going to be some, within the first week, the boats are generally within 50 miles or so of each other. So we thought there'd be a few boats around for that. And that's why they put that challenge in, is to encourage the boats to be competing, early in the race like that. But yeah, it was a pretty magical moment. And I hope we have some more of those where there's some really close racing, because I tell you, when you see another boat on the horizon, the energy level and the intensity on the boat just goes to a new level. And but you're also reminded every day that what a massive, massive planet we live on. And, two boats going almost exactly the same speed and almost exactly the same direction are a couple 100 miles apart from each other. And you'd never know they were there. It's just so isolated. So it's a really unique experience, to be honest. I mean, to be out in the ocean and to be, part of nature and the expansiveness of the skies and all of the nature that we got to see, pretty magical.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you for this conversation. It's really, really interesting and fun to be able to, hear about this through your eyes. I think I've said before that, like, for me, it's a lot like sort of watching Wimbledon or watching the Olympics or something, where you're hearing about the contestants and you hear their stories and stuff like that. To be able to actually speak to you, as you're going through this is like epic.
Yeah. Well, it's a great way for me to document this as well. And so I really appreciate your time to do this. We have some great journalists, or writers on our boat who write themselves pages and pages of reflections every day. And I'm not great at that. I'm more sort of live in the moment and then, move on to the next one. So this is actually helpful for me to really kind of recount some of what's been my own journey and my own learning and my own experience. So, I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, awesome. Well, yeah, this is super fun. Yeah, and as you said before, the UNICEF fundraiser is so I had a question about that because I thought that it had sort of stopped, but it's ongoing.
Yeah, it's ongoing until I think until we leave on the very, very last leg into Portsmouth. So yeah, many more months ahead. And that's a team fundraiser for our boat, and all the money going to UNICEF, which does important work for children around the world, which, now that we're back in the news cycle, is pretty relevant these days with all this crap that's going on. So yeah, support for that would be greatly appreciated. We're hoping to do an event in Cape Town for some local business people and school teachers to help raise some more awareness and to raise a little bit of money towards that. But yeah, individual donations would be greatly appreciated on that.
And there'll be links in the show notes for coachandrewmoss.com, for the Facebook group, which has been really fun to be in. That's been it's been a blast. For the UNICEF fundraiser and for your GoFundMe, so that folks, if they want to support you as you're, circumnavigating and feeling inspired about that, you can do so. So, all right. I guess, are we there? I mean, anything else you want to say?
Nope. I'll see you in Cape Town.
Yay, we'll see you in Cape Town. Oh my gosh, how cool. All right, well, thank you very much for today. Thank you everybody for listening. We will see you next time for the recap of the second leg.
Thanks, Kay.
Thank you.